Okay, shalom and welcome everyone back to our Faith in a World of Turmoil series for Nishmat. This week, we are so grateful that you joined us, and we have the pleasure of hearing from Rev. Dr. Chananya Blass, who is a graduate of Yeshivat Merkaz Harav and Yeshivat Kotel, and has an academic background of Jewish history and Jewish philosophy from Hebrew University and Ariel University. He lives in Yerushalayim with his wife and 4 children, and with no further ado, take it away.
Okay, so hello everyone. You hear me? I'll take that as a yes. Yeah, okay. So feel free to interfere with questions and any comment you have on the things I'm teaching. Every now and then I might pause and raise a question, and then I'd appreciate if you relate to the things we're dealing, because studying is not only has also an aspect of some kind of dialogue. So I'll be glad to hear your opinion. So I'll go right ahead. I'll just share the screen, and we go. Just one second. We're talking about the same file that was sent to you by Julie. So here we go. Okay, now the topic I gave to this class is Ha'adam Me'ir LaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means in a way that man brings some light even to the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself, to Hashem. And this phrase is not something obviously I invented, but something we're going to find in the writings of Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen Milublin, who was one of the greatest scholars in Chassidut. He lived approximately 150 years ago. But the whole concept that we're talking about has to do with emunah and turmoil. How does one deal with the fact that the world we're living in isn't perfect? And I'm saying is not perfect. It's sometimes it seems to be close to perfection. Sometimes we can sense the world as being a place of chaos, total chaos. And 70 years ago, we'd be talking about the Holocaust. It would be one kind of shiur. Now we're talking about different days, though we are facing Corona, but it's a whole different world. So let's get right to the sources themselves. Talking about Abraham as being the first one of believers. If we think about the time of Abraham, would we think about the world as being a place of turmoil, or as a place which is fixed and makes sense? What do you think?
Oh, definitely turmoil.
Definitely turmoil. What brings you to say that?
There was a lot of transition. You could see from even the decisions that Avram and his family made, that they were moving from one place to another. People don't get up and move unless there's a good reason.
Okay. So first of all, Avraham himself moving from one place to another, right? He first moves from Ur Kasdim to Haran, and then he moves on. We know it's also a time of idol worshiping. Avraham finds himself with his, belief of unity, but he's just standing by himself in the world. So that is a sense. We have Migdal Bavel in the background. The people scatter all over earth. That happens not so much time before Avraham, and according to some Drashim, Avraham himself participated in the building of this tower and left it as he was going. As it was being built, he saw it was going the wrong direction, so he left. There is a well-known saying. There was a philosopher who lived about 250 years ago, 300 years ago, who was a mathematician as well. His name was Leibniz, his last name. And he wanted to claim that this world is the most perfect world that could be ever created. And the fact that it doesn't seem that way is just because you can't fit in everything. But this is the best world that could have been created. He built a whole theory based on math, kind of trying to prove this idea. I saw Rav Steinsaltz once wrote that according to Judaism, the world we live in is the worst world possible that could have been created and still existed. Meaning, if this world would have been created even slightly worse than it is now, people wouldn't have the hope of pushing it anywhere. But it's built. Hashem did think about this world, but thought about the most, the lowest possible world they could create without having it fall apart, and then still existing as a world that he created, meaning having his light in some way or another. So just a few points of view before we touch the sources itself. So we're going to see two sources, both in Midrash Rabbah, discussing Abraham's point of view towards this world and comparing him, at least in the first source we're going to see, to Noach. Now, many times when there's a comparison in the Midrash between Noach and Abraham, it's a comparison between a Jewish way of looking at the world and a I wouldn't say Goyish way, but it's like, Noach presents all the rest of humanity, even in a high level, Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach, that's the human race. Avraham, in a way, is our twist. So comparing Noach to Avraham is significant in this case. How does Noach see the world? How does Avraham see this world? So let's begin. It talks about, this Midrash talks about Noach. And it tells us, Et Elohim italech Noach, and brings a machloket. Before we do the machloket of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nehemiah, what does it mean, Et Elohim italech Noach, which appears in the beginning of Parashat Noach? Et Elohim italech Noach. I would understand what it says, Ima Elohim italech Noach, which means together with. It turns out that the word et in Hebrew or in biblical Hebrew means together with. Okay, it's like I say, Ani holech itcha, Ani holech ito means together with, et Elohim, together with Elohim. The beginning of Sefer Shmot reads the same way. Ve'ele Shmot bnei Yisrael habayim mitzrayma, et Yaakov, ishu ve'ito ba'u. What does et Yaakov mean? Together with Yaakov, ito. Okay, et. So we have et Yaakov, ishu ve'ito ba'u. We have et Elohim italech Noach. So Noach, in a way, is considered, might be seen as someone who's very close to Hashem because he goes together with him. But here we have a machloket. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nehemiah. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Mashal Lesar, shehayu lo shnei banim. This is like a minister that had two children, two sons, Echad Gadol ve'echad Katan. Amar lakatan, halech imi. The minister told his little son, you walk together with me. Amar lagadol, bo vehalech lefanai. The older son, he said, you can walk in front of me. I don't need you standing beside me. I want you to run forward. Kach Avraham, she'aya kocho yafeh. To Avraham, it was told, hitalech lefanai veheye tamim. This was told to Avraham before he was told about the Brit Milah. Hashem tells him, "Hitalech lefanai ve'etamim." Shaya kocho ra, meaning he didn't have much strength. Et Elohim hitalech Noach. This is a very radical idea. We're going to try to talk about it by Meshech, saying that because Noach was weaker, Hashem tells him, "You go together with me. We walk together." But Avraham is told, walk forward. You don't stand next to me. Walk forward. And this is something to think about. What does this mean spiritually? What does it mean, walk next to me? In a way, one would say, I want to feel close to Hashem. I want to be together with Hashem. What does it mean, go walk forward? In a way, it doesn't make much sense. But this is the Perush that Rabbi Yehuda says when he compares Noach to Avraham. So we're going to see the other Perush, and I'm going to ask you about the difference between the different emphasis that are put between these two different scholars. Rabbi Nehemiah Amar, משל לאוהבו של מלך, שהיה משתקע בטיט עבה. Meaning we're talking about someone who was the friend, אוהבו, it's even beyond the friend, it's the אוהב, שהיה משתקע בטיט עבה, that he was stuck in the mud. But טיט עבה is more than mud, it's like thick mud. הציץ המלך וראה אותו. The king looks and he notices his good friend stuck in the mud. אמר לי, עד שאתה משתקע בטיט, הלך עמי. You know, why are you stuck in the mud? No, let me, I'll pull you out and, walk together with me. It's very strange. Mashal, I'm going to ask you about what you think the meaning is. Hadau dichtiv, et Elohim italech Noach. And that's what it talks about. That's Noach. Noach is someone who's stuck in the mud, and Hashem is his friend, and he calls him out. ולמה אברהם דומה? לאוהבו של מלך, שראה את המלך מהלך במבואות האפלים. Abraham is someone who's also a good friend of the king. שראה את המלך, but who saw the king מהלך במבואות האפלים, walking in dark passages. That's not. הציץ אוהבו, והתחיל מאיר עליו דרך החלון. This good friend of the king started shining some light towards the king through the window. Now, I don't know whether this window exactly exists, and how can you... He has some access to a window that brings light into the passage that the king is walking within. הציץ המלך וראה אותו. אמר לו, the king tells this beloved friend, עד שאתה מאיר לי דרך חלון, בוא והאר לפניי. Come and show me the way. Like, don't stand from the sides and bring light through some side window, but come and bring light before me, in front of me. כך אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא לאברהם, עד שתהא מאיר לי במסופוטמיה ומחברותיה, Mesopotamia, obviously the area of Babylon, בוא והאר לפניי בארץ ישראל, come and be in front of me here in Eretz Yisrael, הדאו דכתיב, and he brings the pasuk, ויברך את יוסף, ויאמר, this talks about יעקב, האלוהים אשר התהלכו אבותיי לפניו, my forefathers who walked before Hashem. So we have two different mishalim. The first one talks about, the first one brought by Rabbi Yehuda, talks about a king who had two sons, and Abraham is like the older son who walks forward, and Noach is like the small son who stands beside you. Rabbi Nehemiah brings two different mishalim and talks about two different friends of the king, one that the king helps out and pulls him out of the mud, and the other one that brings light to the king himself. What's your, before we go, we try to go slightly deeper into the story, what's your opinion about the main machloket? What's the machloket? Why does Rabbi Nehemiah have a different take on things? What is each one of them pointing out? I'd be glad to hear your opinion. I don't think it's right and wrong, so you don't need to feel, it can be an association. I guess let's talk about the difference in terms of the example he brings in each one.
You're all on mute, so if you would like to speak up, please unmute yourself. You're invited to unmute yourself.
Are they all mute?
Yes, but they have the control to unmute themselves.
They do have.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it could be,
Lila says Hashem is interested in the people's lives.
First of all, right. First of all, that's something that one would say is true about these both passages, both opinions. Like Hashem relates, in all cases, he relates to man, and he offers him, he raises some kind of proposal. I'd say with Rabbi Yehuda, first of all, he relates to them as brothers. Noach and Abraham are brothers. One is older than the other, and he's probably more responsible and more capable, and he gets a different task, which is going forward. In a way that the son who stays close to us is the one we might feel closer to in a way, but he also needs our help. Now, once you can send your kid off to Nishmat, it means he's capable of standing on, she in this case, is capable of standing on her own 2 feet. Okay? So if she were able, she'd be living around at home. So there is a sense of trusting someone and believing in him and telling him to go forward. So we have here one story. In the story of Rabbi Yehuda, he gives us one picture of a minister with 2 children. He freely, and you might have an association that or a chat. See if it has to do. Aha. Okay. Okay, the second opinion of Rabbi Nehemiah, who might be disagreeing, right? He has a market with Rabbi Yehuda. He might disagree. So Rabbi Yehuda pictures something else. He brings 2 separate pictures. One that the king sees someone stuck in the mud, and he offers to pull him out of the mud. But the other story, that's about Noah. In the story of Abraham, the king someone else sees the king, meaning the one who, right, in a way, the one who is in the mud isn't man, but rather is the king. In the way but the king doesn't seem in trouble. How do I know? Because it says he sees the king walking in dark passages. He's like overlooked and started shining some light through the window. The king isn't relieved and says, "Oh, at last I can see something." He tells him, "Oh, here you are. As long as you can bring light into this world, what are you doing from the window? Like, come stand in front of me." Right? So we have here like 2 different stories. It's not 2 brothers one's close and one is in the distance, but it's like it might be 2 different stories altogether. One can see it this way. I want to propose an idea that we're going to go into more depth, is that also Rabbi Yehuda, also Rabbi Nehemiah talks about the same case itself. We might have a situation that from one perspective might be seen as someone stuck in the mud, and that's the perspective of Noah. But from a different perspective, you might see the king, in a way, being stuck in some kind of mud, right? It's not 2 different stories. It's the question how to look at the life we are living. For example, someone who is suffering, like in the case of Noah, someone who's stuck in deep mud, and this, I assume anyone who lived in this world for quite a while found it. So this world is dark also from the perspective of Kadosh Baruch. Meaning, not only you're in the mud, but also the king is walking in dark passages because the Kadosh Baruch Hu isn't visible in this world. Both things happen at the same time. When this world is dark for man, in a way, it's dark from the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well, because this world doesn't reveal his light. This world is dark. I'm trying to think about very dark times of the Jewish people. You can say, gee, people suffered immensely on the personal level. On the other hand, you say, where's Hashem in this world? And it's not, Christianity flourished just by the idea that the Jews are suffering so much. So it probably means that Hashem, the way we know him from the Bible, doesn't really exist. So it's probably something else. It's probably some kind of idea. So I would say, Noach, in a way, his connection with Hashem is someone suffering, and then he says, Hashem, please pull me out of the mud. And that's a religious approach to life. I'm in trouble, and I call to Hashem. That makes perfect sense. In many cases, that's what we expect from a religious person to do. According to the Ramban, the whole mitzvah of davening is only when a person is in trouble. Like Ramban says that just davening on a daily basis isn't the mitzvah from the Torah. According to the Rambam, it is. But according to the Ramban, only when you're suffering, that is when there's a mitzvah. daven. But that is one way of looking at things. Another way is saying, wait, it's true might be in trouble. It's true I might be stuck in the mud. But that's not the whole story. King who is walking in the darkness. And the king is Hashem. The thing is, what's the meaning of opening a window? What does it mean? Before we go on and to see more ideas, what does this mean? How would one explain this just on the most pshat level? Like, what does the Midrash mean? That Abraham opened the window and this brought light to Hashem. How would you understand this? Harriet, you want to say?
I was feeling like it's place
Mm-hmm.
to see the king in a dark place. It's giving honor to the king, but it's also being empathetic. That even somebody so high, so exalted, may need our help, or maybe there's something we can do to help that person.
Mm-hmm. So I relate to that in two levels. First of all, you're bringing up an idea that was stressed by Chassidut very much, that says if someone needs mercy in this world, the best thing to bring mercy on yourself is to have mercy on someone else. I've seen it in very strange contexts of people who were able, in their own pain, and sometimes because of their personal pain, to feel empathetic to someone else who might be more, suffering as well, the same way or even more than them. And that in itself, the Chassidut says, where please Rabbi Nachman stresses this very profoundly, that if you have mercy for someone else, that brings mercy upon you. So it's not seeing only yourself. Hashem here, also in the mashal which is brought, doesn't seem exactly like someone who's suffering. I mean, it doesn't present Hashem as being stuck in mud, like, let's put it this way, but someone who's in some kind of darkness. But I agree with the point of view you're stressing, that it's saying not only, it's like saying to Hashem, look, the fact that I'm suffering is not only my problem. In a way, it reflects a larger problem, which relates to you as well. One would say in the Holocaust, saying the fact that the Jewish people might not exist is not a problem of the Jewish people. It's the problem of Hashem. Created these people to bring the Torah to the world and to present. It goes beyond our personal needs, which are also very important. But it's like seeing a larger picture.
If the person with the lamp is walking with a lamp, and it means that person is in darkness and has found some clue how to manage the darkness, and then is sharing that clue with another, in this case, an exalted person or a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it's also taking like a solution, or one solution to the darkness, and sharing it.
Okay, this is very important. We're gonna go into more depth with this direction you're mentioning right now, but it does put more emphasis on man being active rather than passive. Meaning, if Noach is someone who cries out to Hashem, and this is obviously seen as an act of faith, you wouldn't cry out to Hashem if you had no faith in Hashem, right? So Noach is presenting a religious point of view towards life, but it does see Hashem as the one you're crying out to, and he's the one supposed to help you out. Abraham here is stressed as someone who is helping out the king, and as I stressed before, I don't think they're talking about two separate situations altogether, but as how to see the same situation of turmoil in the world. The world is not a complete place. It's a place that has many troubles and there's suffering in the world. But how is this seen? Is it seen, oh, I'm in trouble, Hashem, pull me out? Or does it put weight on my shoulders? I am supposed to be doing something. And the question, I mean, okay, the world is very dark. So what are we going to do about it? So one is, okay, let's cry out to Hashem. And that is, again, that is a religious point of view. But it's not what the Midrash sees as the power of the Jewish people when represented by Avraham. Baba, you want to say something? Okay. Let's see. There's another Midrash talking about Avraham and the way the world would have a different perspective. And I'd also be happy to hear opinion about the two perspectives here. This Midrash and the one we saw before. This is brought down in Midrash Rabbah. No one reading it? There must be someone inside. הציץ עליו בעל הבירה. אמר לו, אני הוא בעל הבירה. I'm the one in charge of this castle. Meaning, I think it's likely that Abraham was going from place to place, and then suddenly in the middle of nowhere, he saw a tower that was burning. Now he said, look, in a way, it seems like turmoil because everything's falling apart and is burning. You know, there's fire in the middle of nowhere. There must be someone in charge of it. And as he was asking this question, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baal HaBira, is the one who told him, yeah, it's me. כך לפי שהיה אבינו אברהם אומר, תאמר שהעולם הזה בלא מנהיג? Could it be that this world we're living in has no one leading it, no one taking it to some direction? הציץ עליו הקדוש ברוך הוא, ואמר לו, אני הוא בעל העולם. How is Abraham presented in this midrash? I mean, we saw in the previous midrashim as Abraham being someone who helps out the king, or someone who goes forward. How is he seen in this midrash? I mean, is it the same? Is it maybe a different point of view? So I would think that Avraham is presented as someone who's curious, and in a way, someone who asks questions, and in a way has doubt. You know what's going on? He's running forward. He's someone who is feeling the pain of misunderstanding this world and the suffer that's involved with it. We're going to see further this idea. I'm going to try to put these two midrashim together and try to sum this up in a way that might give us some perspective on faith in general and a glimpse about things we might bring to mind these days. So going down to the things that says Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen Lublin. Obviously, he lived in Lublin, right, Eastern Europe, about 150 years ago. And this is what he says according to when he relates to these midrashim. So he begins, Hakadosh Baruch Hu melo kol haaretz kvodo, velet atar panui minei. Meaning, obviously, Hakadosh Baruch Hu fills the whole universe. There's no space which doesn't have his existence. That's what it means. There's nothing that he doesn't need. That has this world because Hakadosh Baruch Hu has it revived, has it living. Rak shehu be'elem gadol. Meaning, Hashem in a way does have this world going, but hu be'elem gadol, meaning this is very much disguised. In a way, some people say that the word olam in Hebrew comes from disguise, he'elim. I don't know what it means, where it comes from exactly in English, but world in Hebrew being olam comes from ne'elam, comes from something which is covered, where we can't really see. So this world we're living in a way, is totally covered. V'ka'asher me'ir lelev ha'adam, hakara zo. When it comes to man, when it lights up in his heart, this idea, this hakara. It's more than an idea. It's when he acknowledges this. איך השם יתברך מלוא כל הארץ כבודו, זה נקרא הוציאנו מאפלה לאור גדול, כמו שאומרים בהגדה. בהגדה של פסח, we say יוציאנו מאפלה לאור גדול. The Tzadok says it's not only on the physical level, okay, so you were in the darkness and then you were able to shift out to the light. But it talks about the way that you see the world. You might be able to shift and to understand. This sometimes comes to us like a lightning into our mind, that we suddenly see, you know, Hashem is running the whole show. It might come to us just at a certain, it can be a pure something that be a coincidence, which is so rare that suddenly, you know, a couple of things came together and you feel, gee, this is amazing. Hashem is running the whole show. But on the day-to-day level, we don't really feel that. Sometimes we can let our life, I'm getting the idea, you have, Baruch Hashem, seen a longer life than I did, but having a perspective on tens of years, seeing children and grandchildren, and seeing how things come together, and you have a sense, wait, there is some kind of direction in this world. זה נקרא הוציאנו מאפלה לאור גדול, כמו שאומרים בהגדה. I'm skipping to the next paragraph, והוא הערה לגבי הדת, וגם לגבי השם יתברך. Meaning when man has this acknowledgement of the light of Hashem being the one that's filling this world, it's also הערה לגבי השם יתברך. We're going to explain this soon. כמו שאמרו, משל למלך שהיה מהלך במבואות אפלות, ובא אוהבו והדליק את הנר, שאברהם אבינו עליו השלום, האיר לפני השם יתברך. Meaning, in a way, the fact that man notices or tries to understand this world and sees the light of Hashem penetrating the world, that in a way is also הערה לגבי Hashem. Because Hashem, when he created this world, that was the idea, that man himself would search for Hashem in this world. And then he brings, so first he relates to this first midrash that we spoke about, משל למלך שהיה מהלך במבואות אפלות, אוהבו והדליק את הנר. Meaning the fact that Avraham Avinu, you know, let's go a bit to the Hamshech, and then we'll make more, when we put the two midrashim together. היינו דהוא אפלה, ואם כל זה דולקת, פירוש, שדולק בליבו של אברהם. Meaning in the heart of Abraham, דולק בליבו אור זה דהשם יתברך, אמר, אפשר שזה מעצמו, ולמה מאיר זה בליבו, וכל העולם בתור באפלה. ודאי יש מנהיג בפרטות לכל נפש, לכל פרט נפש, שלא על פי הטבע הכללי. Meaning, in a way, Abraham did see darkness in this world. On the other hand, he felt light. But where did he feel this light? He felt it in his heart. He felt his conscience, which is lit. The fact that he even felt that it's wrong that the world should be this way. The world is supposed to be in darkness. That in itself is the light. That in itself, one would say, is the fire that Avraham saw in this world. He was going to place, says the Tzadok, the birah that was burning was the heart of Avraham himself. He felt this contrast here. The world in ways in turmoil. On the other hand, my heart is burning with quest for Hashem, for eternity, for Kedusha, Hashem in this world. And that in itself, in a way, is opening a window to the world of Hashem. The fact that you're in search. There's a well-known saying of Rebbe Mikosk. Someone asked him, where does Hashem exist? Where is he? And his answer was, anywhere you allow him to come into. If you open your heart. You mentioned, right, just make sure I see you again. The idea of being empathic, right? Opening your heart, as Harriet pointed out, so you feel the light from within. Right? The fact that sometimes man comes out against the fact the world is so dark, and he says, this is not beseder, the world is so dark. It's not beseder. That in itself is the light of Hashem coming through your heart at the moment. And being able to, so you're not just saying, okay, Hashem, help me out. Come, I'm stuck in the mud, get me out of here. It's saying the world is too dark. We should do something about this. Something should be done. We can't just leave it this way. And then in a way, that lights up the world. It's not just awaiting something to happen from the outside. It's taking some kind of responsibility for lighting up this world. And that's the difference between Noach and Avraham. Bring things, I mean, the basic idea of Torah that we're going to talk about, bring down the light into the lowest parts of reality. I pointed out there's something that one of the things that makes Judaism different than other religions has to do with a concept called bedi'avad. You're familiar with bedi'avad? Bedi'avad means, okay, you're supposed to build a sukkah, right? So, but let's say you ran out of, this material. You're supposed to do kiddush on wine, right? But let's say you ran out of wine, and all you have is Coke or whiskey, or are you allowed to do, kiddush on that? Or you run out of chalot, or you can't light your candles, or you've got money only for candles of Shabbat and of Hanukkah. Those are questions that are not dealt with usually, I'd say in general, in other religions. Because, let's say you have church has something, they're eating the bread of whatever. And then they say, gee, we ran out of bread. What are you going to do? What do you mean you ran out of bread? Make sure you've got bread. There is something Jewish about saying, okay, but things aren't going to work out the way they're supposed to. And a lot of the halacha is just written around that. Things got messed up. The world can say, oh, Hashem, I'm stuck. The other way is saying, how do I bring the light of a Kadosh Baruch Hu into this world, this dark world, which is not the way I would expect it to be to begin with. That's the world of Avam. Avam, you can run forward. Go ahead and fix the world and bring light into this world. It's not a mistake that he tells him, according to Midrash, he says, you're just opening a window, and that's what we do in a way. In Chutz La'aretz, in Eretz Yisrael, there's a way of mamash bringing a larger light, of creating some kind of great society that brings light to the whole world in a great extent. Let's just see the ending of this thing that the Tzadok presents. אברהם אבינו עליו השלום, להיותו אב כולל כל הנפשות, והוא צריך להעיר לכל העולם כולו, היה כלי לסבול תבערה ודלקה זאת גם כן. Meaning Avraham Avinu he was the first one in the world who had to carry the pain of this tremendous be'era, this tremendous fire, this contrast of, how can it be that the world is so messed up, but I feel such a great meshicha, such great attraction to Kedusha and to Hashem. That's the fire he was feeling. And he felt a tremendous contradiction between the world that was so broken up and his inner world. In the way I mentioned in the beginning, that according to the Midrash, Avraham Avinu was one of the people who took part in building the Babylonian Tower. He was involved in the technology of the time. He was involved in ideas of the time, but he felt as he was building that this is going the wrong direction. The mankind is going the wrong direction. This is not bringing more light into the world. This is not advancing humanity to where it's supposed to be. And eventually from there, from Migdal Babel, he gets the tzivui lech lecha, go on and create a greater world through coming to Eretz Yisrael and creating and making this world a better place altogether. But the responsibility lies on man. So I think in a way, when you talk about faith in times of turmoil, it would be to say, okay, I am in trouble. What is this? What am I supposed to do now? I mean, how am I bringing this world to be a better place? So they say, oh, this is so awful. And Hashem, where are you? Which is also obviously legitimate and should be asked. And the Nevi'im did ask. But there is a sense to say, okay, how do I actively change reality and make this, and because that's the tafkid of the beloved man of the king, that he's the one who brings light to Hashem. So go ahead, make this world a place where my light, where the light of the king, light of Hashem, does appear in a more visible way. It's on our shoulders, and not only is being passive and expecting the light to come from the outside. So that's like just a very general, I just brought in very general lines, very bold lines, and that's the shiur of today. Any questions, comments?
Anyone? Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much
you.
for
It was very
participating.
enlightening.
It's my pleasure.
Thank
And
you, Rav Chananya, and thank you all for joining us. I want to remind you that the series concludes next week with Yoetzet Halacha Racheli Sprecher Frankel, who will speak about those who trust in Hashem, loving kindness shall surround them, reflections on faith. So join us next Sunday at 10 o'clock, and this class will be available online on Nishmat's YouTube channel tomorrow. Feel free to watch it again or share it with your friends. Take care and have a wonderful week.
thank you. See you.